gun control and gun violence varies across the globe. Some countries legalize guns and have fewer rules, and some ban them altogether. However, no other developed country in the world has anywhere near the same rate of gun violence as the United States. The recent firearm homicide statistics per million people showed that the US had over triple the number of firearm homicides to its closest following country. In 2015, the US had nearly 6 times the gun homicide rate as Canada and more than 7 times as Sweden. To understand why that is, there's another important statistic. The US has by far the highest number of privately owned guns in the world. Countries that have experienced similar traumatic shooting incidents have taken significant steps to regulate gun ownership and restrict assault weapons, therefore generally experiencing far fewer incidents of gun violence. With less than 5% of the world's population, the US has about 35 to 50% of the world's civilian-owned guns. That's about 88.8 guns per 100 people, or 270 million guns. The Second Amendment of the US Constitution protects individual gun ownership. In many states, individuals can obtain guns without ever having held or fired a gun before. In 2013, statistics from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention show roughly 73,000 emergency room visits for non-fatal firearm accidents and 33,000 fatal firearm accidents in the US. Many actions have been made with the intention to reduce gun violence. However, the number of gun advocates only hinders the process of further controlling public access to weapons. According to a recent survey, the most common reason given for gun ownership is protection. Just like security lights or large dogs, guns are something people have to ensure their safety from intruders. However, guns are rarely used in self-defense. Of the 29 million violent crimes committed between 2007 and 2011, less than 1% of victims protected themselves with a threat of use or use of a firearm. Buying a gun in the US is astonishingly easy. It's about as easy to buy a beer or a car as it is to obtain a gun. Of the total gun transfers made in 2012, 60% were sold by licensed dealers, leaving the remaining 40%, or 6.6 million guns, to be sold by private sellers, requiring no background check or record of sale. This makes obtaining guns increasingly easy for criminals. Since criminals can't pass a background check, over 80% of criminals obtain these weapons through private sales. How can the gun issue be solved, and does the rest of the world have the answer to America's problem? In the 18 years prior to 1996, there were 13 mass shootings in Australia, which at the time had relatively non-strict gun laws. However, when a rampage ended 36 people's lives in Port Arthur, the Australian government implemented strict gun laws and began a gun buyback scheme. This resulted in hundreds of thousands of guns being turned into the government. Since these laws were implemented, there have been no massacres in Australia, and gun-related homicides and suicides have both dropped significantly. In order to solve such a difficult problem with backing on either side, the US government must do something about the growing number of deaths caused by gun violence. A cross-state agreement needs to be made, and stricter gun control laws must be implemented.